This season on America from the Ground Up, I'm on an expedition to explore the impact of Spanish colonization on America. The ship I'm standing on today is a representation of the San Salvador. That's the flagship of Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, the first European to explore the coast of California in 1542. For most of us, when we think about the colonial American story, it's the British at places like Boston, Plymouth, and Jamestown that comes to mind. But in fact, the Brits were a lot of Johnny-come-latelys to the colonial game in North America. And by the time the British had a colony here, the Spanish had defeated the Aztec Empire in Mexico, and the Viceroyalty of New Spain had been around for more than 85 years. And the Pilgrims were still over a decade away from Plymouth Rock when the Spanish established a capital for New Mexico province here in Santa Fe in 1610. Spain's decision to colonize the West would impact America's story right through the 19th century. And that includes the continent's native peoples, a shared history and a border with Mexico, and the diverse people who helped America colonize the West in the 19th century. And this season, we'll work with archaeologists and historians to dig into the archaeological history of America from the ground up. For most people, archaeology is the study of spectacular monuments like the pyramids in Egypt or Stonehenge in England. The popular idea is that it's all about gold, kings, and the so-called big men of history, but mainly it happens somewhere else. And American history was something written in the pages of dusty books. But the real story of America is down in the dirt, underwater, and right beneath our city streets. Every day we walk on top of thousands of years of history. The natural wonders in the landscape and the sidewalks of our cities hold the secrets of America's past. Those stories are waiting there to be discovered by us. And just like modern Americans, the Native American ancestors used the natural resources available to shape the world around them. The story of the ancestors begins with the first people migrating into North America during the last ice age. Archaeologists have a number of theories. And while there's some argument, most agree that by 15,000 years ago, the ancestors migrated south of the ice, and over the next 1,000 years or so, would make their way to the furthest reaches of South America. And archaeologists can trace that movement through the tools and weapons and the things that people left behind. And then, about 10,000 years ago, people began to experiment with growing their own food. We call that agriculture. We used to think the pattern of development in North America went something like this. The advent of farming leads to chiefdoms and complex societies. We saw that model in the Mississippian civilization last season. At Cahokia, the creation of monuments like Woodhenge and Monk's Mound pointed to how powerful and godlike the ruling elites were. But new evidence is forcing us to rethink how societies arrived at that complex level. And there's a site out here in the wilds of Louisiana that's revolutionizing what we thought we knew about how that process worked. And that's what brings me here to Watson Brake, where we have a big, expensive monument with no other obvious signs of a complex society. I met Louisiana state archaeologist Diana Greenlee to find out more about the people who built these mounds.
Watson Brake is not the oldest of the Middle Archaic mounds, but it is the most complex. This is one of the earliest groups of mounds called Middle Archaic mounds. Yeah. And there are, I think, about 14 in Louisiana and a couple more in Mississippi. So the site here is fairly early, and it's a very complex set of earthworks. Is it something that we can see an influence on at a place like Poverty Point? Well, that's a really good question. We know that, the people of Poverty Point were familiar with other older mound sites in the area, but we can't say that there is a continuum of mound building from the Middle Archaic into the Late Archaic. And there appears to be roughly 1,000-year hiatus between Middle Archaic mound construction and Poverty Point.
Poverty Point is a UNESCO World Heritage Site not far from Watson Brake, and it's another site where a hunter-gatherer society appears to have come together and built a massive, monumental set of earthworks.